Hello and welcome to this second look exploring session looking at, well, the triumphs of the Golden Fleece as well as the triumphs of integrity. First by Anthony Munday and the other by Thomas Middleton, the celebratory pageants and triumphs for the Lord Mayor's Show of 1623. Which we are looking ahead in this session to how we will do our own recreation 400 years after the event. We've got a year and some months to get that together, and so we're starting to think more practically about this one. We've already recently gone back to 1622, which we're thinking of only doing a little thing with, just a little thing. But this, we hope, with enough time, we will be able to pull something a little more expansive in the vein that we did with 1621. You may notice a mathematical progression here, at which point there may be some kind of funding thing that may even be, there might even be a link attached to this video by the time the video goes out. I don't know. This may or may not be a thing. You could always give money to us anyway. We've got lots of ways you can give us money. If you want to give us money, this isn't an appeal to give us money. Let's get on with the thing. Reading today, we have a wonderful room full of readers to work through the text. Give away everyone. We have Tom, we have Greg, we have Lynsey, we have Tracey, we have Liza, and we have Kyle, and we may even have somebody else popping in a little later on. And I'm Robert, your host. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the initial water show that you get at the top of the show. Before we begin, I suppose for newcomers, anyone who hasn't watched one of these videos before, I will bring up my usual background image of the tube map interpretation of the Lord Mayor's Show route. It always starts at the Guildhall. It heads down to the waterside at three cranes. The Lord Mayor goes all the way to Westminster, gets sworn in, comes back to somewhere around about Paul's Stairs, heads up to St Paul's, where the primary pageants then begin, though they can begin pretty much anywhere, depending on the year. And they process along Cheapside, past a little conduit, the cross, standard, back to the Guildhall, while everyone has some snackage before the Lord Mayor, later in the day, heads back to St Paul's for a bit of a religious ceremony type thing, and then heads back home. We are starting today at the waterside. Anthony Munday has actually written for us a water show, which we actually have a text for. We don't always have text for the water show. It is often a little bit minimal text-wise, but we actually have some text. We don't have necessarily actually in performative text, but we do have some words. So we'll start off with just the introductory bump to the printed text. Lynsey, could you just read the initial opening bits and bobs until we get to your poor loving brother? If you could start us off, please.
The triumphs of the Golden Fleece, performed at the cost and charges of the Ancient and Honourable Society of the Drapers for the instalment of their worthy brother Mr. Martin Lumley in the mayoralty of London, on Wednesday being the 9th and 20th day of October 1623, written by A. Munday, citizen and draper of London. London, printed by T.S. 1623. To the worshipful and worthy gentlemen, Mr. John Galter, Mr. John Foster, Mr. Robert Aubrey, Mr. Walter Coventry, the masters, wardens, bachelors, and their assistant brethren of the Ancient and Honourable Company of the Drapers. To you, worthy gentlemen, whose provident care and liberal cost hath run through the troublesome travail of so serious an employment, do I justly, and as no more than is your due, dedicate this poor pains of mine, which might have been more had time so favoured, but such as it is, take you the honour of my best endeavour, in this day's triumphs of the Golden Fleece, and what service else you shall please to command me. Your poor loving brother, A. Munday.
So once again, we get this sort of introductory bump of the various people going on. Tracey, we've got the worthy brother Martin Lumley. Do we know anything about Martin Lumley? And what company is it again? I
It's
should know.
Drapers, Drapers Company, who have had a number of Lord Mayors in the last few years. Lumley's much more kind of I can't say bog standard Lord Mayor, really, certainly compared to Proby, who we discussed in the last session, who's really interesting. He just worked his way up through the kind of civic hierarchy, as you do. Nothing particularly controversial, nothing particularly interesting. He was probably incredibly wealthy, and had lots of good connections and so on. I mean, what's notable, I guess, from this little section we've done so far is that Anthony Munday is at pains to kind of remind everybody that this is his company. So it's kind of a big deal for him. It's something special for him.
Yes, Anthony Munday has, as of yet, not dug any holes for himself in this text, which is almost disappointing. It's almost straightforward. Okay, we'll continue on. We'll ask Lynsey and Kyle to alternate stanzas in the introductory. In fact, all of the prose that we have here, describing what happens in the water shows. So I'll ask Kyle to read the first paragraph, then Lynsey, and we'll alternate between. So, gracing the Triumph Day, for the inauguration of the Drapers' worthy brother, Master Martin Lumley, in the mayoralty of London, for the year ensuing, we get.
First, for the water service in the morning, when his lordship taketh barge for his convoy to Westminster, accompanied with the knights and ealdormen, his worthy brethren of several societies, and all the other companies in their triumphal barges, with drums, fifes, trumpets, and other jovial instruments, there is ready mounted on a barge of apt conveyance a beautiful and curious Argo, shaped after the old Grecian antique manner, not with masts and sails as prepared for rough and boisterous seas, but like to the Grecian Argos, for carriage of passengers in time of calm and gentle weather, having banks for men to set and row with oars, for more quick and agile passage on the seas.
This Argo figureth that of so great fame and renown, wherein Prince Jason and his valiant Argonauts of Greece passed to Colchos, to fetch from thence the Golden Fleece, which is the crest of the Draper's armoury, and therefore the main motive of our employing the invention, alluding to that famous moral and ancient history.
We suppose this Argo to be returned from Colchos, purposely to honour this triumphal day, by the rare art of Medea, the enchantress, that kept the fleece there so long a time, and wherewith she was now the more willing to part, in regard of her affections to the Drapers' Company, to whom she gave it freely for an honour and ornament to their arms.
And to make the triumph the more full of majesty, she vouchsafed to come herself in person, attended with the fair queen Irene her daughter, and accompanied with the famous princes Jason, Hercules, Telamon, Orpheus, Castor, and Pollux, all armed with fair gilt armours, and bearing triumphal lances wreathed about with gilded laurel and curious shields, all carrying the impress of the Golden Fleece.
6 tributary Indian kings, holding their several dominions of Medea and living in vassalage to her, are commanded by her to row the Argo, all of them wearing their tributary crowns and antiquely attired in rich habiliments.
The service being performed upon the water, the like is done on the land, all the rest of the day following, always attending his honours service, and for adding the more splendour to the triumph solemnity.
Whatsoever credit or commendation, if any at all, may attend on the artful performance of this poor device, it belongeth to the arts masters Richard Simpson and Nicholas Southern, and freely I give it to them. A.M. Finis.
Okay, so we've got the details of the water show. We've got boats a boat without a mast. We've got rowers. We have Jason accompanied by other people in presentment. We've got Medea, who's very happy to give up the fleece because it's the Drapers. And, why wouldn't you? They're sort of inferred that there is some kind of text that should go with that, isn't there? Even though we don't have a text. It seems like that it's not just gestural, that there's some sort of performative text that sadly we don't have. We could always chuck in some Jason. We've got some spare Jason left over about Golden Fleeces, I'm sure. But yeah, we have the slightly problematic in terms of imagery there of the 6 tributary Indian kings are doing all the rowing. That's not a good optic. But yeah, thoughts from the room, Liza.
Yeah, I mean, the inclusion of Medea as a benevolent figure intrigues me, because she's so often associated, even though she did do a great deal to help Jason, she's so often associated with the tragic end of that relationship. She, content warning for death, but she murdered their 2 children, and she and absconded in a chariot drawn by dragons. So but here she's a benevolent sorceress. She loves the Draper's company, and she freely gives them the Golden Fleece, and I'm sure they won't let her down in the way that Jason did. So win-win, really.
Yeah, the Lord Mayor, the new Lord Mayor would never do that to her, I'm sure, because, honest Draper. So yeah, it is a shame that we don't have actual any performance text. I suspect there possibly would have been. It does seem the way it's couched suggests that that there is something happens. It's not just a tableau. But we have also got the tableau elements in there. We've got Jason, Hercules, Telamon, Orpheus, Castor and Pollux. They're armed with fair gilt armours. We've had the problem of trying to get fair gilt armours before. Tom was our knight because that was the only gilt armour we could get to fit. Armour is tricky stuff that way. Lances, gilded laurel, curious shields, carrying the impress of the Golden Fleece. So we've got an image of the Golden Fleece as their sort of their coat of arms going on there. Other thoughts coming out of that that we can or cannot perform or want to throw in? Tracey?
But the barge, the barge is accompanying the Lord Mayor, the triumphal barges. That's absolutely accurate. That's exactly how they would have been fitted out, with drums, pipes, trumpets, and so on. I think what's happening here is that Munday typically is sort of making benefit of necessity by claiming that they didn't need masts and sails because there's no rough and boisterous seas, because it's a barge, and barges don't have masts and sails. So they're basically clearly repurposing a standard barge to turn it into the Argo. And I imagine there would have been some, dressing up of one of the standard barges, which were obviously very highly decorated anyway. So yeah, I think it's a nice idea that you've got the normal sort of bevy of boats, of barges, the entourage heading down Park River even, and you've got this one which is less set out as a kind of a stage, and is fairly detailed.
Just a question. I don't know if Liza can answer this question. I know what a drum, a fife, and a trumpet is. Any idea what kind of instruments jovial instruments would be? There are jovial instruments. I don't know if that has any meaning beyond jolly.
I'd assume it just means festive. If you have a drum and a fife, then the other and trumpets, the other instruments you have are going to be loud instruments. We're not talking strings here. We're talking woodwinds, reeds, brass, maybe shawms, cornets, sackbuts, stuff you blow into and it's loud.
Yes, because that's the thing, is that these are not quiet events. We have got a lot of noise going on for all of this. And that pretty much the arrival of the Lord Mayor is the cue for that kind of noise to start as well. From the moment he appears, someone's going to start blowing a trumpet. You just can't stop them, and that's before you put in things like cannons going off as well. Okay, any more for the water show? We do have the issue with the optic. We do have the issue of trying to stage a water show full stop. I'm not sure what one can do with the element of the water show, with without about a about $250,000, I suspect. Anyone want to hire an era-appropriate barge? Anyone know where to get one of them beyond making one?
They do exist.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if we'd be able to. I've just got this idea of this massive Gregory paddling pool in Paul's churchyard.
Yeah, I have to say I am quite interested in a sort of scale model recreation. Might be quite a fun thing, if only as a sort of video to accompany rather than something that actually gets staged. As I say, the problem is the absence of a performance text, as sense beyond just the tableau. We could briefly create the tableau with people standing there grinning, but yeah. Okay, let's move on to the land-based stuff then. So I will ask Liza, could you read the opening introductory bump, please, to the Triumphs of Integrity?
I'm just fine. Yes, the Triumphs of Integrity. A noble solemnity performed through the city at the sole cost and charges of the Honourable Fraternity of Drapers, at the confirmation and establishment of their most worthy brother, the Right Honourable Martin Lumley, in the high office of His Majesty's Lieutenant Lord Mayor and Chancellor of the most famous city of London. Taking beginning at his lordship's going and perfecting itself after his return from receiving the oath of mayoralty at Westminster, on the morrow after Simon and Jude's Day, being the 29th of October, 1623, by Thomas Middleton, Gent. London, printed by Nicholas Oakes, dwelling in Foster Lane, 1623. To the honour of him to whom the noble fraternity of Drapers, his worthy brothers, had consecrated their loves in costly triumphs, the Right Honourable Martin Lumley, Lord Mayor of this renowned city. Thy descent, worthy fortune's early grace, sprung of an ancient and most generous race, matched with a virtuous lady, justly may challenge the honour of so great a day. Faithfully devoted to the worthiness of your oath, Thomas Middleton.
Okay, do we gain anything particularly new from this bit of text? I don't think we do, but
I spy something new. Usually they don't mention a wife.
Well, that's true. Yes.
Usually they just talk about whoever the Lord Mayor is. Now the virtuous lady is in the dedicatory poem and is a fellow dedicatee, I think. Faithfully devoted to the worthiness of you both. We haven't seen that. Perhaps Middleton knew them personally, or maybe they'd been his patrons before.
Do we know anything about his wife?
Sorry, there was something interesting about Lumley. His grandfather was from Italy, or Genoa.
Yeah.
That's about the most interesting thing about him. I don't know who he married. That's what I'm looking up. Probably one of the big families, big city cap families. But yes, you're right, Liza. I mean, the only time I can think of is that rather embarrassing, well, very embarrassing moment in the 1616 show when Munday goes on endlessly about Leonard Holiday not having been married, never having been married, and who would want to marry him anyway because he's like frankly minging. Maybe I better shut up now. So it is unusual.
Yes, and it is in the dedicatory poem section, which I've just reformatted in my script. Not necessarily in the show itself. It'll be interesting to find if there is any reference to his wife in the show. Would she be processing along with him, or would she just be back at the Guildhall? We know that there were ladies at the Guildhall for the feast.
Yes, definitely the feast. Women tended to watch from kind of windows along Cheapside and sort of elevated positions. Well, women of any kind of quality, shall we say. I've not seen anything that suggests that women were actually present during the ceremonial as such. I think it's unlikely.
Okay, so we have perhaps usually we have a bit of sort of introductory bump, and then we go into the actual description of the show itself. Tom, if you could read the next paragraph to open that up. And then Liza, if you can do the big and first to specify. And then Greg, I think, is our first actual speechifier. And I'll pick up what's left at the end if necessary. I'll see how far we need to go. So, Tom, of all solemnities.
Of all solemnities by which the happy inauguration of the subject is celebrated, I find none that transcends the state and magnificence of that pomp prepared to receive his Majesty's great substitute into his honourable charge, the City of London, dignified by the title of the King's Chamber Royal, which that it may now appear no less heightened, but with brotherly affection, cost, art, or invention, than some other preceding triumphs, by which of late times the city honours hath been more faithfully illustrated. This takes its fit occasion to present itself.
And first, to specify the love of his noble fraternity after his lordship's return from Westminster, having received some service upon the water by a proper and significant masterpiece of triumph, called the Imperial Canopy, being the ancient arms of the company, an invention neither old nor enforced. The same glorious and apt property, accompanied with 4 other triumphal pegmas, are in their convenient stages planted to honor his lordship's progress through the city. The first for the land, attending his most wished arrival in St. Paul's churchyard, which bears the inscription of a Mount Royal, on which mount are placed certain kings and great commanders, which ancient history produces, that were originally sprung from shepherds and humble beginnings. Only the number of 6 presented, some with crowns, some with gilt laurels, holding in their hands silver sheephooks, viz. Viriat, a prime commander of the Portugals, renowned amongst the historians, especially the Romans, who in battles of 14 years' continuance purchased many great and honorable victories. Arsaces, king of the Parthians, who ordered the first kingdom that ever was amongst them, and in the reverence of this king's name and memory, all others, his successors, were called Arsacides after his name, as the Roman emperors took the name of Caesar for the love of great Caesar Augustus. Also, Marcus Julius Licinius, Bohemia's Primislaus, the Emperor Pertinax, the great Victor Tamburlaine, conqueror of Syria, Armenia, Babylon, Mesopotamia, Scythia, Albania, etc. Many honorable worthies more I could produce by their deserts, ennobling their mean originals. But for the better expression of the purpose in hand, a speaker lends voice to these following words.
The speech in the Mount Royal. That with their glory inflamed hearts desire to see great worth deservingly aspire, let them draw near and fix a serious eye on this triumphant mount of royalty. Here they shall find fair virtue and her name, from low obscure beginnings raised to fame. Like light struck out of darkness, the mean wombs no more eclipse brave merits, and rich tombs make the soul happy. 'Tis the life and dying crowns both with honours sacred satisfying. And 'tis the noblest splendour upon earth, for man to add a glory to his birth, all his life's race with honoured acts commixed, than to be nobly born and there stand fixed, as if 'twere competent virtue for the whole life to be begot a lord. 'Tis virtuous strife that makes this complete Christian, not high place, as true submission is the state of grace. The path to bliss lies in the humblest field, whoever rise to heaven that never kneeled. Although the roof have supernatural height, yet there's no flesh can thither go upright. Well, this is instanced only to commend the low condition whence these kings descend. I spare the prince of prophets in this file, and preserve him for a far holier style, who being king anointed did not scorn to be a shepherd after. These were born shepherds and rise to kings, took their ascending from the strong hand of virtue, never ending where she begins to raise, until she place her lovesick servant full with her grace. And by this day's great honour it appears she has much prevailed amongst the reverend years of these grave senators. Chief of the rest, her favour have reflected most and best upon that son whom we of honour call, and may successfully reflect on all.
From this Mount Royal, beautified with the glory of deserving aspirers, descend we to the modern use of this ancient and honourable mystery, and there we shall find the whole livery of this most renowned and famous city, as upon this day and at all solemn meetings furnished by it. It clothes the honourable senators in their highest and richest wearings, all courts of justice, magistrates and judges of the land.
Okay, we'll pause there. Yes, doesn't Anthony Munday just love to show his learning? He's very keen on these little footnotes as we go along. So we got 6 presented on the Mount Royal, and so we are at Paul's Churchyard. There's a nice footnote. He's quite nice about Munday. This is Middleton, of course. Sorry, there's not Munday saying these things. This is Munday. Monday's gets a decent gloss from Middleton there. He says some nice things about him. It's a proper and magnificent masterpiece of triumph. It's a masterpiece. Which will join us on the land. So the water show does appear on land as well. It does join us. So presumably whatever was mounted on the barge unloads itself while everybody's off at Westminster and heads off. I don't know if we'll get more data on that later on. It's accompanied by the 4 other pieces, but this is the first one, Mount Royal. So is this a mountain, do we think? Is this our mountain set? We're working our way through what our basic staging protocols are here. So is this the mountain set, do we think?
Yes, I think because it would have worked, wouldn't it, in terms of seating of the 6 characters. With the kind of the hierarchy, the most prestigious one at the top. So yeah, we see that so many times in the various chariots and devices, don't we?
So we've got 6 kings. We know who they are. They're not the most famous to my eyes in terms of modern eyes of kings. I obviously recognise Tamburlaine, but Pertinax rings a bell. But otherwise, nothing else is really leaping out at me. Those who know better, tell me. More exposition on who these figures are. Liza.
Okay, I don't know who the first one is. Viriat, a prime commander of the Portugals. I imagine he'll be in some Roman history. That's what the text seems to indicate, or some Latin history. Arsaces, I'm struggling to say him in English because I know him as Arsace. There are a lot of Baroque operas that feature at least people of that name. And they tend to be Persian princes or Persian kings. Marcus Julius Licinius, I don't know who that was. Primislav of Bohemia. Again, it's ringing a bell. I assume also from a Baroque opera. I also don't know about Pertinax, but of course we all know Tamburlaine, whose name I think more accurately is Timur Lenk, or Timur. Yes, so and he is supposed to have come from shepherd stock, although who knows whether he wasn't simply a career soldier, but it's all obscured by the mists of legend.
So, I mean, they all thematically linked in the sense that they're all coming from a lower status to rise to a higher status, which is sort of where the Lord Mayor sort of myth, anyone can rise in our guild livery company systems.
It's not just that. They're extolling shepherds because it's the Drapers Guild and they're in the wool trade, and hence the whole Golden Fleece thing. Although they don't have as we had in 1621. They don't have any fine woolly creatures cavorting about.
As far as we know, I mean, they maybe they're just implicit. I think we should always populate these things with as many sheep as possible.
I thought this speech is very much Middleton talking from the heart. There, I think there's that central piece. For a man to add glories to his birth, all his life's race and honoured acts mixed, then to be nobly born and stand there fixed, as if to a competent virtue for whole life. You've got a lord. It is virtuous strife that makes a complete Christian, not high place. There's something very kind of heartfelt about that, and it reminds me so much of Webster, of that the wooing scene with the Duchess of Amalfi and Antonio, and the whole sense that you have to submit yourself to access grace. Being highborn is not in itself a good thing in that regard.
Yes, I completely agree, and I love the emphasis on humbleness there. But it also in the speech they go on later to imply that Jesus would have been worthy of inclusion among that number. That to be who, as the text implies, was first anointed as a king, but then a shepherd both in the religious sense.
And it's fundamentally different from the kind of praise and stuff that we get, in connection with kings and kings who might be on the throne very much at this time. So it's a very different sentiment, isn't it? It could almost be critical. I can't imagine Thomas Middleton around about this time writing anything critical about the royal family in any way, shape, or form. That won't be coming next year in any way, shape, or form in a game at chess. It does. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it seems to be very much on Middleton's mind at this time, doesn't it? So we've got a mountain. We've got 6 figures. We've got a speech. This is very much in our wheelhouse. We've done this or something like this. I think I would like to suggest that we're in a situation where we might be able to present more than one pageant device on more than one stage. I'd love that to be where we are. That would be very nice. I think this is a very, very set-upable. I would quite like to set up the tableau of the 6 figures. And figure out, how to give that impression of their growth from, there needs to be something slightly shepherdy about them, but then the crown's at the top, as if, the lower down you get, the more sheep you are. I don't mean that literally. Well, I think this feels very doable. This feels, there's nothing leaping out at me going, oh, this is a problem. This is not performable in some way. And I think that would be quite nice next time, is if we can do something where we get the whole tableau more together, and get that shape, even if we don't build as large a structure, but we could actually get a structure that presents this. Any other thoughts? Crazy thoughts about what to do with this particular pageant? What do you want to see? I say we can build a little mountain. I think we can. We don't get much description of the Mount Royal itself, really, do we? Just it's a mountain, or it's a mount. I mean, it doesn't have to be a mountain. It could just be a hill, really, couldn't it? A nice little hillock. Does it suggest mountain?
I'm just thinking, I think there's a kind of elevated area in Paul's churchyard, around the back where Paul's cross was, that kind of area. Because that would be great to do it in Paul's churchyard. It'd be amazing.
Well, we don't have to do these all in one place, of course. I mean,
no.
Just because we did it last time doesn't mean we can't next time look at that. So that's an idea. If we go for things slightly more in situ. I like that. Okay. We will, however, I think move on unless there's other thoughts. I don't know. Everyone's very small on my screen at the moment, so I apologise if I don't see you waving. Okay, let's go on to who's the speech in the Chariot? That's a good question, isn't it? That's memory. So that is would have been Rachel, but I don't see Rachel in the room. So I will say that will be Lynsey, and I will say, Kyle, could you read the introductory bit of that? and get that in place. And yes, that's it for that section, I think. So we are moving slightly further along now. Cheapside, we've left, and we're the St Paul's Churchyard. We're heading towards the Little Conduit next. So Kyle, take it away, please.
By this time, his lordship and the worthy company being gracefully conducted toward the Little Conduit and Cheap, there another part of the triumph waits his honor's happy approach. Being a chariot artfully framed and properly garnished, and on the conspicuous part thereof is placed the register of all heroic acts and worthy men, bearing the title of sacred memory, who, for the greater fame of his honorable fraternity, presents the never-dying names of many memorable and remarkable worthies of this ancient society, such as were the famous, for state and government, Sir Henry Fitz-Alwyn, Knight, who held the seat of magistracy in this city 20 years together. He sets figured under the person of government, Sir John Norman, the first Lord Mayor, rode in barge in Westminster with silver oars at his own cost and charges, under the person of honor, the valiant Sir Francis Drake, that rich ornament to memory, who in 2 years and 10 months' space did cast a girdle about the world, under the person of victory, Sir Simon Eyre, who at his own cost built Leaton Hall, a granary for the poor. Under the figure of charity, Sir Richard Champion and Sir John Melbourne. Under the person of munificence or bounty, Sir Richard Hardell and Sir John Pulteney, the one in the seat of magistracy 6 years, the other 4 years together. Under the figure of justice and piety, that Sir John, being a college founder in the parish of St. Lawrence, Pulteney, by Candlewick Street, et sec de Ceteris, the chariot drawn by 2 pallided lions, being the proper supporters of the company's arms, those 2 upon the lions presenting power and honor, the one in a little streamer or banneret bearing the Lord Mayor's arms, the other the company's.
The speech in the chariot. I am all memory, and methinks I see into the farthest time, act, quality, as clear as if 'twere now begun again. The nature's dispositions and the men, I find to goodness they bent all their powers, which very name makes blushing times of ours. They heaped up virtues long before they were old. This age sits laughing upon heaps of gold. We by great buildings strive to raise our names, but they more truly wise built up their fames, erected fair examples large and high, patterns for us to build our honours by. For instance, only memory relates the noblest of all city magistrates, famous Fitz-Alwyn. Naming him alone, I sum up 24 Lord Mayors in one. For he by free election and consent filled all those years with virtuous government, custom and time requiring now but one. How ought that year to be well dwelt upon? It should appear an abstract of that worth, which former times in many years brought forth, through all the life of man. This is the year, which may wish and never can come near. Think and give thanks to whom this year does come, the greatest subjects made in Christendom. This is the year for whom some long prepared, and others have their glorious fortune shared. But serious in thanksgiving, 'tis a year to which all virtues, like the people here, should throng and cleave together. For the place is a fit match for the whole stock of grace, and as men gather wealth 'gainst the year comes, so should they gather goodness with their sums. For 'tis not shows, pomp, nor a house of state curiously decked that makes a magistrate. 'Tis his fair noble soul, his wisdom, care, his upright justness to the oath he swore, gives him complete, when such a man to me spreads his arms open, there my palace be. He's both an honour to the day so graced, and to his brotherhood's love that sees him placed, and in his fair deportment there revives the ancient fame of all his brothers' lives.
And there that's all we get for this one, though. In a sense, we've got more than enough to be going on with. It's giving us a lot of good material. So we've got a chariot, and it's led by two lions. Isn't that nice? I like it when we've finally got some decent animal action. Apart from some fine woolly creatures, we actually have two decent animals there. And we've got the company's arms, and we've got the Lord Mayor's arms as well on streamers or bannerets, which is nice. So we got some coats of arms being part of the demonstration, and then we have once again various previous Lord Mayors being associated with terms, so honour, victory, charity, bounty, etc. Justice and piety. So there's lots of interesting bits and bobs there in terms of what to do visually. So once again, we need to be thinking about physically showing different drapers, not necessarily all actually mayors, and in place, and yeah, with things denoting what they represent, as it were. So once again, is it just 6? Was it 6? Was that the number? I didn't count actually, and I can't remember if they actually state the number.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
8.
8. Excellent.
Yeah. 6 of which I think are would be relatively easy to personate, because the Norman could hold a silver oar. Francis Drake, I'm sure we could find a way of making Drake recognisable. Simon Eyre could carry a sheaf of wheat or something. Then it starts to get more problematic because no one's ever heard of Richard Hartnell. I hadn't. So yeah, but there's some decent material there. He's obviously, Middleton's being a bit cheeky, claiming Fitzorwin for the Drapers. We know about that because obviously he was also claimed by the goldsmiths. Although there is a portrait of Fitzorwin in Drapers' Hall, so very much something they try. He was the first Lord Mayor, and for a long time. Yeah, I think that's doable. It's just the chariot artfully framed, properly garnished.
Yeah. It's a slightly harder set to put together, and this is the I mean, it's presumably not a moving chariot though in that sense, because I assume the lions aren't actually pulling it.
They did sometimes dress the horses up, so they might have draped the horses something to make them look like lions.
Because it does say pelted, so pelleted, so it does suggest that that could just be lion fur type stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether if do they just have one of those sort of dodgy mane things that you people sometimes put over dogs?
Excellent.
So so maybe horses dressed as lions. I don't. Is a horse cosplay a thing? I don't know. I know people cosplay their pets. I don't know if horses is too much. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's probably beyond us to actually have a chariot that goes anywhere, but we could definitely set up something that looks like a chariot, with vaguely lion-esque elements, and then memory. Does memory get specifically connected with a figure, or is it just because that's the obviously the personification of the pageant itself in general, because that's the general thing. It's memory, remembering all these previous people. And
carrying a book or a scroll elsewhere, yeah.
Yeah. But is memory specifically anyone, or does memory have a visual signifier?
Yes.
Liza.
memory is, in Greek, which I'm probably going to massacre the pronunciation of, memory is named Mnemosyne, and she is the mother of the muses. That is, to succeed in any of the arts, you have to have a good memory. So memory is the mother of the muses, and she is, yes, as was it Tracey who said holding a scroll or a book, probably.
Yes, we have a register, so we've had that thing. Well, if memory is an additional figure, you see, because then that means there are 9 figures on, and so are we getting towards 9 muse territory? But just translated into drapers, the 9 musing drapers. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch, but it might be sort of sideways in there as part of it. But yeah, this is by the little conduit, so it's a little further along. There's nowhere really around there we could do a thing, is there? Specifically, I'm now starting to think more processional than we've previously done.
It's like a crossing in front of the tube station. There's just absolutely nothing there, unfortunately.
No,
it would be really crap, actually. Yeah, shame. Of course, churchyard's great.
Yeah. Well, we can ask. We can but ask. Yeah. Oh well. Any other thoughts about this particular one? We've got a chariot. We've got figures. We've got lions. And the speech itself. Any thoughts about the speech itself? Lynsey, you were doing it. Anything coming from that?
Yeah, I was just sort of struck with the points that Tracey and Liza were making earlier about this sort of straightforward and sober and sincere sort of praise of good behavior, good life, wisdom, not riches, not fame. I'm not expressing this very well, but they should so should they gather goodness with their sums, for 'tis not shows, pomp, nor a house of state that makes a magistrate, 'tis his fair noble soul. As I was reading that, I was sort of kind of registering what the comments that had come before, and thought, yes, this is reinforcing that.
Yeah, you're going to be judged on what you do and who you are, and not just because you happen to be privileged to be in this situation. You do actually have to be good. Excellent. Okay, who is next up? Speech from the Sanctuary's integrity. Who's down as integrity? Liza's integrity. So
just suspend your disbelief for a bit.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. We will ask Greg if you could read the introductory paragraph into that, and also after that until I say stop.
Sorry. Can you just confirm the first words of the first one, please?
After this, for the full close, we're in St. Lawrence Lane, so we've moved further along Cheapside. We've skipped past where we performed last time. So I don't know whether there's. I don't know whether the water show goes in between this. I don't know if this text gives us an idea where the water show would have been placed among these pageants here. So I suspect the water show might have slotted in between the last one and this one. I don't know. But anyway, Greg, take it away.
After this, for the full close of the forenoon's triumph near St. Lawrence Lane, his lordship receives an entertainment from an unparalleled masterpiece of art called the Crystal Sanctuary, styled by the name of the Temple of Integrity, where her immaculate self, with all her glorious and sanctimonious committance, transparently seen through the crystal. And more to express the invention and the art of the engineer, as also for motion, variety, and the content of the spectators, this crystal temple is made to open in many parts as fit and convenient times, and upon occasion of the speech. The columns or pillars of this crystal sanctuary are gold, the battlements silver, the whole fabric for the night triumph adorned and beautified with many lights dispersing their glorious radiances on all sides through the crystal.
Have you a mind, thick multitude, to see a virtue near concerns magistracy? Here on my temple, throw your greedy eyes, see me, and learn to know me. Then you're wise. Look and look through me. I no favor crave, nor keep I hid the goodness you should have. 'Tis all transparent what I think or do, and with one look your eye may pierce me through. There's no disguise or hypocritic veil used by adulterous beauty set to sail, spread o'er my actions for respect or fear. Only a crystal which approves me clear. Would you desire my name? Integrity, one that is ever what she seems to be. So manifest, perspicuous, plain, and clear, you may e'en see my thoughts as they sit here. I think upon fair equity and truth, and there they sit, crowned with eternal youth. I fix my cogitations upon love, peace, meekness, and those thoughts come from above. The temple of an upright magistrate is my fair sanctuary, throne, and state. And as I dare detraction's evilest eye soar at the sight of goodness, to espy into my ways and actions, which lie ope to every censure, armed with a strong hope. So of your part ought nothing to be done but what the envious eye might look upon. As thou art eminent, so must thy acts be all tralucent, and leave worthy tracts for future times to find, thy very breast transparent, like this place wherein I rest. Vain doubtings, all thy days have been so clear, never came nobler hope to fill a year.
Okay, well, there is a little bit more of text to come, but we'll just pause there. The Crystal Temple. That's all the data we get on it for this moment. So we're at St Lawrence Lane end of Cheapside, and yeah, this is throwing us not so much a curveball as a budget buster. The first two were doable in some way because, okay, even if we couldn't do really good lions, we could personify lions in a way that, you know, to give it an idea of what's going on. This, we need to build a crystal sanctuary where they sit transparently seen through the crystal. Yeah, there are pillars, and it opens up, and we have an idea of ambition, but we don't have any schematics as to how this all works. So, thoughts from the room about what this looks like, Liza?
Well, I imagine that they have been putting the glass blowers to work, that they probably have some prisms. One thing that's easier for us than it was for them is to light it. It says the whole fabric for the night triumph, adorned and beautified with many lights, dispersing their glorious radiances on all sides through the crystal. So they will probably have done that with candles in glass lanterns. But, you know, LED chandeliers are pretty easy to come by. And these days they make prismatic chandelier crystals out of plastic rather than out of glass, although I still think the glass ones have the best rainbows. And we definitely want a lot of rainbows here. The harder part, as many have said in the chat, is that the temple has bits that open. So possibly doors or, you know, reveals of some kind that open during the speech, probably during the bit where Integrity talks about her thoughts, saying, you know, I think upon fair equity and you may e'en see my thoughts as they sit here. I think upon fair equity and truth, and there they sit, crowned with eternal youth. So that implies a reveal. And then I fix my cogitations upon love, peace, meekness, and those thoughts come from above. So you can either read that as those thoughts that come from above, that is religious, holy thoughts, or or perhaps people representing those concepts are revealed in a high place.
Yeah,
anyway, I'm kind of loving this. Budget, we'd find it. There are people who can kludge this together. I have faith.
yeah.
We don't have to make it out of glass. It can be plastic.
Yeah, but it's still got to be pretty big if we've got, and I mean, this is not a small structure. If we've got various figures, I mean, it's almost a Celebrity Squares thing, isn't it? But except the windows open, and every so often someone goes, "Look, it's me."
Except, are there people in the windows, or is it like an advent calendar where there are painted tableaus? Maybe.
It's just also the question of transparently seen through the crystals. So, and upon occasion, is made to open in many parts. Is that if it's transparent, then why do you need them to open? So it makes sense for it to open for integrity, because then you can hear integrity without something in the way. I'm not sure if the rest of it is doing that, or whether it's just a demonstrative thing. Obviously, it doesn't need lights during the day when it's first performed. It mentions the lights for when it returns to sit outside the Lord Mayor's house later on.
Yeah, so they'd have that whole time when he was at supper to prepare the candles and light the lights.
So these all, Lynsey.
Yes, I was just remembering that I used to have, I no longer have, but it was an umbrella which was clear plastic, and the tips of the umbrellas had little lights on them that when you sort of pushed a button on the umbrella, they sort of chased around. And if you were to have integrity holding that umbrella with these sort of bits of fabric I alluded to in the chat, the sort of cheap diaphanous shimmering kind of rainbow fabric, that can open, it's a very collapsible and portable structure. I'm not saying that's the greatest idea, but I'm saying that you could create the effect of something like that in a very simple way. I mean, without having to have like a sort of proper, a proper heavy set, solid structure. It could be something much more lightweight, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's both the problem and the opportunity of this text is that actually we don't have that much data as to what it looked like. We don't have a shape from it. We know there are pillars. We know there's crystal that knows it opens up. We know it's beautified with lights, but it's not like the Royal Mount where we know it's sort of probably a mount. It's a mound or a hillock or a hill or a mountain. And we know what it's beautified with, but I say we don't really know what shape any of this is. So, I mean, I'm thinking on a practical level, this is the kind of thing to do at if they're still happy to have us turn up again, is St Mary le Bow's churchyard. It's close enough to this particular spot. St Lawrence Lane is slightly further down along Cheapside, so if we were in a situation where we could do the first pageant at St Paul's, fudge something for the Chariot, and then do this relatively close to where it would have been, we're more in a sort of semi-processional sort of mode, as it were, which we weren't able to do last time, and we may or may not be able to do next time. In terms of what we're doing next time, which is a different thing before this one. Any other thoughts about this particular sanctuary? Is there a sanctuary shape? Has anyone designed any sanctuaries? Know of any sanctuaries of the time? Is it just a gazebo? I don't know. Okay, so we'll go into the next bit of descriptions. I'll ask Kyle to read the next paragraph, and then the Imperial Canopy is Tom. So I'll ask Lynsey to read the paragraph after that, the entrance of Wood Street, and then I'll ask Greg to do the final paragraph at the end, and we'll just read the rest of it. So we're going to be jumping through time portals here. So they're all going to go off to the feast. They're going to go to St Paul's, and then they're going to come back to the Lord Mayor's house, I think is where we're going. Yes. Kyle, take it away, please.
At the close of this speech, this crystal temple of integrity, with all her celestial concomitants and the other parts of triumph, take leave of his lordship for that time, and rest from service till the great feast be ended, after which the whole body of triumph attends upon his honor, both toward St. Paul's and homeward. His lordship, accompanied with the grave and honorable senators of the city, amongst whom the two worthy councils, his lordship's grave assistants for the year, the worshipful and generous Mr. Ralph Freeman and Mr. Thomas Middleton, sheriffs and aldermen, ought not to pass of my respect unremembered, whose bounty and nobleness will prove best their own expressors.
Near the entrance of Wood Street, that part of triumph being planted to which the concluding speech hath chiefly reference, and the rest about the cross, I thought fit in this place to give it its full illustration, it being an invention both glorious and proper to the company, bearing the name of the thrice royal canopy of state, being the honoured arms of this fraternity, the 3 imperial crowns cast into the form and bigness of a triumphal pageant, with cloud and sunbeams, those beams by ingenious art made often to mount and spread, like a golden and glorious canopy over the deified persons that are placed under it, which are 8 in number, figuring the 8 Beatitudes, to improve with conceit, Beati Pacifici, being the king's word or motto, is set in fair great letters near the uppermost of the 3 crowns. And as in all great edifices or buildings, the King's Arms is especially remembered as an honour to the building and builder in the frontispiece. So is it comely and requisite in these matters of triumph framed for the inauguration of his great substitute, the Lord Mayor of London, that some remembrance of honour should reflect upon his majesty, by whose peaceful government under heaven we enjoy the solemnity.
The blessedness, peace, honour, and renown this kingdom do enjoy under the crown, worn by that royal peacemaker, our King, so oft preserved from dangers menacing, making this arms, glorious in itself, outgo all that antiquity could ever show, and thy fraternity hath strived to appear in all their course worthy the arms they bear. Thrice have they crowned their goodness this one day, with love, with care, with cost, by which they may by their deserts most justly their arms claim. Got once by worth, now trebled, held by fame. Shall I bring honour to a larger field, and show what royal businesses this arms yield? First, the 3 crowns afforded a divine scope, set for the graces charity, faith, and hope, which 3 the only safe combines be of kingdoms, crowns, and every company. Likewise, with just propriety, they may stand for those 3 kingdoms swayed by the meek hand of blessed James, England, Scotland, Ireland. The clouds that swell beneath them may imply some envious mist cast forth by Heresy, which through his happy reign the heavens blessed, the sunbeams of the Gospels strike through still, more to assure it to succeeding men. We have the crown of Britain's hope again, illustrious Charles our Prince, which all will say adds the chief joy and honour to this day. and as 3 crowns, 3 fruits of brotherhood by which all love's worth may be understood. So threefold honour makes the royal suit in the king, prince, and the king's substitute. By the 8 beatitudes ye understand the fullness of all the blessings to this land, more chiefly to the city whose safe peace good angels guard and good men's prayers increase. May all succeeding honour brothers be, which with as much love brought home as thine brings thee.
For all the proper adornments of art and workmanship in so short a time, so gracefully setting forth the body of so magnificent a triumph, the praise comes as a just due to the exquisite deservings of Mr. Garrett Christmas, whose faithful performances still take the upper hand of his promises.
And yes, once again, proper respect for Garrett Christmas and all of his exciting stuff, which sadly we cannot see. Or at least not for this. So I've got lots of little notes about this one. Because I'm just curious, actually, about the way the triumphs function here. Because obviously it says everyone gets a break while everyone goes to the feast. But then we get that sort of curious phrasing, after which the whole body of the triumph attends upon his honour both towards St. Paul's and homeward. And I'm not quite sure precisely where that means they're arraigned or what they're there. Because presumably he goes from the Guildhall, walks along Cheapside again. So again, they're just activated again for his passing by, and everyone just sort of waves. And then also homeward as well. And then this particular triumph here, the Imperial Canopy, is situated at the cross. So was this place in place earlier in the day, after, in between the pageant? Is this effectively the second pageant, or is this and it's just placed in the manuscript in a funny place? I'm not quite sure why this is here. He talks about it being the concluding speech. I thought fit in this place to give its full illustration. So I'm wondering if he's just moved it here because he thinks it's a good place to close the manuscript rather than.
I don't know. It's very political. I think it's possible it didn't actually take place on the day that bit.
Ooh.
He sort of separated it out slightly, hasn't he? I mean, it's very, very difficult to work your way through Middleton's kind of convoluted syntax, but I thought in this place to give it its full illustration. I've always thought, the first time I read it, I was reading it, I was thinking, oh my God, this is really, he's really going for it here. Sorry, I need to explain what's just happened. 3 weeks before this, Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, returned from a fruitless trip to Spain to negotiate a marriage with the Spanish Infanta. The scenes of mass joy and delirium, apparently, according to lots of sources. This is a slightly more outspoken version of what Middleton's staging here. The people's clamour. Oh, sorry, not that one. I've written about this. As you can tell. They told us 20,000 lies to feed the people's fantasies and put them in great fear. But when the prince to England came, brought not home the Spanish dame, the papists hung their ears. So, it was a real kind of "Ya boo sucks to you, King of Spain" moment. And what Middleton does is he uses the Draper's Arms as a kind of means of depicting that political moment. And as I say, I've got absolutely no evidence this beyond just a hunch, but it is a bit strange the way he's positioned it in the text. I just got a feeling that it was maybe they just sort of said maybe just leave that bit out.
Yeah, I'd say its proper place in the pageants would be second, because it's between the cross is along Cheapside. It's a little after you've left St. Paul's and before you get to St. Lawrence Lane and that sort of end. And of course, we don't even know where the water show goes when it's on Cheapside either. So we had something for the St. Paul's. We had the little conduit. This is potentially at the cross. So yeah, I'm really curious about that now. What does this look like? Sorry, I got diverted on geography, so I didn't focus on what the actual pageant looked like. What does the pageant look like? There's some crowns, aren't there, and some beams and some sunbeams and things. Who is paying attention? Somebody give me some exposition.
It's basically the Draper's Arms. I pasted in a link to a picture of it in the chat. With the three triple crowns, with the kind of what could be regarded as cloud, and then sort of what could be regarded as sun coming underneath them. That's the bit he's talking about.
Because it's not like there's a description of what this actually looks like, is this? It's just a speech. Really? It's like you could just set up a whacking great banner and just put the speech next to it. So maybe this isn't really a pageant. This is just a speech with a flag of his arms. I mean,
I think there's a bit on that. It says thrice royal canopy of state, being honoured for arms this fraternity, 3 imperial crowns cast into the form and bigness of a triumphal pageant with cloud and sunbeams, those beams by ingenious art made often to mount and spread a golden glorious canopy of the deified persons that are placed under it.
So we got the 8 Beatitudes. Yes, sorry, you're absolutely right. With clouds doing... So there's some sort of weird shifting cloud sun formation thing going on behind the Beatitudes. Okay, sorry. Excellent. Liza, you were waving.
Only very briefly, and it wasn't germane.
Okay, you can... Well, I don't think there's competition, so carry on. No, okay. So this is more doable. Again, if it's some Beatitudes, 8 figures, and effectively, I mean, I'm not sure about the moving cloud and sunbeams. That might be a little harder to do, but could be quite fun if people have just sort of sticks with clouds and things just moving around. And yeah. So yeah, we've got a lot more of an option here if we've got the possibility of doing something that is slightly more processional. I mean, it's very hard to do this kind of thing on Cheapside, I should point out, and we have no official permissions for any of this for anything on Cheapside, so or any of these spaces. So we shouldn't assume that. But I have to say, I do feel with this one, it would be really rather good to create different, to make some attempt to actually build some of these pageants in slightly more, even if they're not in their full glory, to give the sensation of how they function. I think when we talked about initially doing 1621, we were talking about having a selection of spaces that you could approach each pageant and you could see, them in their glory, even if they're only a few feet away from each other rather than several hundred yards or whatever.
I think if we were to do the Imperial Canopy bit, I think at that point, if the Drapers weren't actively involved in that, it would be just ridiculous because it's their coat of arms.
Yeah.
And they'll probably have banners and things actually in the hall. I'm sure they do. So there's, you never know. We've got a year and a bit to work on them.
Yeah. I mean, there's really, there is real scope on this one for pushing the draperyness of it all, which I'm not sure we got so much with the 1621 one. I mean, there was, but there wasn't. It feels much more in your face this time around. I don't know if I'm just imagining that and we just missed it. Other thoughts in the room? We've got to the end of those various pageants. There's a fair number of them. They're all doing interesting things. Any thoughts in the room about how to make this happen? What kind of recreation do we want to go for? Especially for those who were here last time, who knows what our options are. One of the big problems we have, of course, is actually setting up any of these things and building them on the day in a space that it doesn't necessarily have much in the way of actual room for manoeuvre. Tom?
Yeah, I remember walking down, was it Cheapside, in a full suit of armour, and nobody batted an eyelid. So it's just normal. So I don't know about procession. I think it could get diluted. Whereas if St. Paul's would be a fascinating venue. And as you say, each one, and I do like the idea of the very large umbrella as the crystal, because that is a very portable thing and can open and close and has panels and see through. Thought that was a really good prop.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we'd be looking for, on a health and safety note here, we'd be looking for a space that isn't inherently a street, or we need street adjacent, because we'd need, to be able to place something in place, and then also have somewhere to put the audience safely, because health and safety is quite an important element for this kind of thing. It's not like any of these things would move, really. I mean, we might consider trying to move them from place to place, but they don't function while they're moving, if that makes sense. That's not their design. Lots of discussion in the chat about lighting for that final performance of the Imperial Canopy, not the Imperial, final appearance of of our crystal. I was going to call crystal skulls there for a second, but that's a very different thing. The Crystal Sanctuary. And it's a shame we don't really have a text to go with that. I mean, obviously, if the one at the cross is supposed to be just on Cheapside while the Lord Mayor is walking to St. Paul's after dinner, when it's dark and all the other pageants are there and they're all lit in some interesting way, but obviously the crystal one is lit in the most interesting way because it's made of crystal, or whatever it's actually made of. With other Liza.
Yeah, I mean, I put this in the chat, but I was thinking about the various things they did to enhance candlelight in the Sam Wanamaker Theatre at Shakespeare Globe here in London. Because where they perform plays by many authors.
Move on.
Anyway, I've seen experiments with copper or brass reflectors, reflectors sort of semicircling the candle and reflecting its light that way. I imagine that in the Crystal Temple, I mean, you could have silvered mirrors in your glass lanterns that might amplify the flame by 2 or 3 times.
Well, they do reference silver and gold battlements and pillars, so that it looks like they're building. If it's not crystal, it's reflective.
Yeah, I mean, the Drapers spent big on this. And the night pageant would only have to last for the length of basically one speech. So I suppose it would be just light as many candles as you can, perhaps enclosed in glass or semi-enclosed in metal, and just hope that there's not a strong breeze, or that the light lasts. I mean, a strong breeze won't affect a lantern, but it would affect cressets, which Tracey's just mentioned. And also hope that you don't set the set or your performers on fire.
Minor issues. Talking of spending, the Christmas Middleton, they got 150 quid for the pageants and shows, and Munday got 35 quid out of that for the Argo. So the dressing thereof, I assume not the barge itself. I mean, that's the thing. The barge sort of comes, I assume, comes with it. But yeah. And it is one of those things that effectively we don't really have, as they would have had. Those structures seem to be reused, and some of the stock stuff is reused each year. Whereas we don't really have that, even though we've done one in the past, we don't really have anything that we can effectively reuse. As it happened, we never got around to. I never quite finished getting a decent Golden Fleece last year, even though we did actually have Jason. So I can't even reuse the Golden Fleece because it really looked quite mangy. I really did try to make the fleece look good. Did not look good. It was not reflective and shiny. It just looked dull and brassy. It was a very sad moment. Okay, any final thoughts then from the text now that we've got? I'm feeling relatively positive about this one, I have to say. I mean, there is the awkwardness in the water show, but I don't think the water show itself is a goer. I think that's something where you do something supplementary for it to demonstrate it, but I don't think you would make it as part of a reconstruction because we don't have any performative text, which is a shame. But all of the speeches felt good, and even if we can't recreate all of them, I think certainly the first two feel very buildable, that we could build something that we could definitely demonstrate, and the second two slightly harder, but they're a challenge, and maybe someone out there is interested in that challenge, as it were. Any final thoughts in the room before I close the session?
Just to say, I love this one, and I'm happy for us to do as much of it as we can. Really, I think it demands it really.
I have to say, my feeling at the moment is, if we could do it multi-phased across a number of locations, maybe not all four, maybe just two different locations, that would be quite nice. I'd quite like if we could ask Paul's and say, would you mind? That would be a lovely starting point, because I think that would be something we could do very nicely. Liza, did you want to step in?
I wasn't raising my hand. I was just sort of gesticulating. These hands are really controlled by rods, a la Jim Henson.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I think I've said pretty much everything I think, except that compared to other years, I quite like this pageant. I like the emphasis on goodness of soul coming from humble beginnings. And Lord knows, integrity in her transparent temple has implications for government policy even today.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, it looks like we're on a much better wicket than we've found with some of the other texts. All that remains then is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their giving up their time. Hopefully, we will return with more from the Triumphs of Integrity in the future. Thank you very much, and goodbye.